Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be diving into something that I know a lot of you are interested in, and that's weight loss. But more specifically, we're going to be looking at the differences between intermittent fasting and just like regular old dieting,
hmm
um, and trying to figure out which one is really more effective and which one might be a better fit for you. So let's just jump right in.
Yeah, when I was first looking into this whole intermittent fasting thing, I was actually pretty surprised by all the science that's coming out about it now. It's not just like some trendy fad diet. There's actually real research and data behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I think a lot of people when they hear fasting, they automatically think, "Oh my God, I could never do that. I'm going to be starving and miserable."
Yeah.
But that's not really what intermittent fasting is about.
Mhm.
It's not really about deprivation as much as it is about timing.
Right.
So it's like cycling between periods of eating and voluntary fasting.
Mhm.
And there are a bunch of different popular methods. But I think the one that's most talked about right now is the 168 method. Yeah, that's definitely the one I hear about the most.
Yeah, so how would you describe that to someone who's never heard of it before?
If you think about it this way, you fast for 16 hours and then you have an 8-hour window to eat. So let's say you finish dinner at 8 p.m. You wouldn't eat again until noon the next day. So you're skipping breakfast, basically.
Okay, so it's not about eating less, it's more about
Yeah,
when you eat.
exactly.
Okay, so that's a 168.
Yep.
What are some of the other methods out there?
There's also the 5.2 diet, and that's basically where you eat normally for 5 days a week. And then for 2 days, you significantly reduce your calories. And then there's also alternate day fasting, which is pretty self-explanatory. You fast every other day.
Okay, so we've got all these different types of IF, but how does any of this actually lead to weight loss?
Well, basically what happens is when you're fasting, your body starts to use its stored fat for energy, since it's not getting glucose from food.
So it's like switching your body's fuel source from carbs to fat. Okay, I can see how that would lead to weight loss, but does it also affect your hormones in any way?
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest things is that it can increase your human growth hormone levels, or HGH, which helps with fat burning and muscle growth.
Okay, so that's a win-win.
And then you also get improvements in insulin sensitivity.
Okay, hold on. Let's break that down for a second. What is insulin sensitivity and why is it so important for weight loss?
So basically, insulin is a hormone that helps your cells absorb glucose from your blood. And when you eat, your blood sugar levels go up. And that triggers your pancreas to release insulin. So the
Hmm.
insulin helps your cells take in that glucose for energy. But if you're constantly eating or eating a lot of high-carb foods, your body is constantly pumping out insulin. And over time, your cells can actually become resistant to it, meaning they don't respond to insulin as well.
So it's like your cells are getting tired of all that sugar.
Pretty much. And that can lead to high blood sugar levels, which increases your risk for type 2 diabetes, weight gain, and other health problems.
So IF can help prevent that
Yeah,
by giving your body a break from insulin.
exactly. By
Okay.
going for extended periods without eating, you allow your blood sugar levels to stabilize and your insulin sensitivity to improve.
It's like hitting the reset button on your metabolism.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So we've talked about all the potential benefits of IF, but let's shift gears for a second and talk about traditional dieting.
Okay. Yeah.
So when we talk about dieting, we're usually talking about things like calorie counting, cutting carbs, going low fat.
Yeah, all the classics.
Yeah, so what are some of the most common types of diets out there?
Well, you've got your low-carb diets, like keto, where you basically cut out almost all carbs, and that forces your body to burn fat for fuel instead.
Right, and that's where the whole ketones thing comes in.
Exactly. Ketones are basically an alternative fuel source that your body produces when it doesn't have enough glucose from carbs.
So your body is basically adapting to this new way of eating.
Yep.
Okay, and then there's low-fat diets.
Right. Those focus on reducing your overall calorie intake by limiting fat, since fat has more calories per gram than protein or carbs.
Okay, so it's all about watching those calories.
Pretty much.
And then, of course, you've got calorie counting.
Yeah, the good old calorie counting method, where you track everything you eat and make sure you're staying within a certain calorie limit.
So it seems like the common thread among all these traditional diets is calorie control.
Yeah, that's the main goal,
Yeah.
to create a calorie deficit so that you lose weight.
But do you find that people struggle more with restrictive diets over time?
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot of people find it really hard to stick with those kinds of diets long term. It can feel really restrictive and you're constantly thinking about what you can't eat,
Mm.
which can lead to cravings and eventually you might just give up altogether.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. So maybe that's why IF is becoming so popular.
Maybe.
Because it's not about restricting what you eat,
Yeah.
it's more about when you eat.
Right. And that can make it feel a lot less like a diet and more like a lifestyle change.
Yeah. And that's what we're all looking for, right?
Right.
Something that we can actually stick with.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got IF, which seems to be all about flexibility and
Right.
working with
Yeah.
your body's natural rhythms. And then we've got traditional dieting, which is all about calorie control and creating that deficit.
Yep.
But how do we know which one is right for us?
Well, that's the million-dollar question. And
Right.
unfortunately, there's no easy answer. It really depends on your individual needs and preferences.
Right, so maybe we can talk about some different scenarios and see which approach might be a better fit.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so let's say you're someone who hates feeling restricted by food rules. You love spontaneity and freedom when it comes to eating.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Would IF be a better option for someone like that?
I think so. Because with IF, you're not really eliminating any foods. You're just being strategic about when you eat them.
And you don't have to track calories or macros or anything like that.
Right.
So there's a lot less mental work.
Definitely.
Okay, so what about someone who's not a breakfast person?
Oh, yeah. IF can be great for those people, too, because they can just naturally extend their overnight fast and skip breakfast altogether.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And they might find that they have more energy and focus throughout the day without that morning meal weighing them down.
But what if you love breakfast?
Well, you can always adjust your eating window to accommodate that. You don't have to follow the 168 method exactly. You can find what works for you.
Okay, so there's definitely some flexibility there.
Absolutely.
Now let's talk about someone who thrives on structure and accountability.
Okay.
They love having a plan to follow and knowing exactly what they're supposed to eat each day.
In that case, a traditional diet might be a better fit because they can follow a specific meal plan and track their progress. And they might find that that structure helps them stay on track.
Okay, so it really depends on your personality type.
Yeah?
But what about health goals?
Yeah, that's another important factor to consider.
So let's say you're not just looking to lose weight, but you also want to improve your blood sugar control or reduce inflammation.
Well, IF has been shown to be really beneficial for those things.
Okay, so that's something to keep in mind.
Definitely.
But of course, it's always best to talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian before making any major changes to your diet.
Absolutely. Especially if you have any underlying health conditions.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, but I think the key takeaway is that there's no one-size-fits-all approach to weight loss.
Right.
It's about finding what works best for you,
Exactly.
your body, your lifestyle, your goals.
And what you can actually stick with long term.
Yeah, that's the most important thing, because if you can't stick with it, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about IF and traditional dieting, but I want to talk about some more general tips for success that apply no matter which approach you choose.
Okay, yeah.
So let's start with hydration.
Staying hydrated is super important for weight loss because it helps curb hunger pangs, it supports your metabolism, and it keeps everything running smoothly.
It's amazing how something as simple as water can make such a big difference.
I know, right?
So what about food choices?
Focus on nutrient-dense whole foods like fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, and healthy fats. Those foods will keep you feeling fuller for longer, and they'll provide your body with the nutrients it needs.
Okay, so it's not just about calories, it's about quality too.
Exactly.
And what about exercise?
Exercise is crucial for weight loss and overall health. It helps boost your metabolism, build muscle mass, and improve your mood.
And it can be anything you enjoy, right?
Absolutely. Whether it's walking, running, dancing, swimming, anything that gets you moving.
Okay, so we've got hydration, food choices, exercise. Is there anything else we should keep in mind?
I think the most important thing is to be patient.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Weight loss takes time, and it's not always linear. There will be ups and downs along the way, but as long as you're consistent with your efforts, you will eventually reach your goals.
So don't get discouraged if you don't see results immediately.
Exactly. Just keep going.
And celebrate those small victories along the way.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think that's some great advice to end on.
I hope so.
So thanks for joining us for this deep dive into IF and traditional dieting.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See ya. And it's not about being perfect, it's about progress, right?
Exactly. We're all human. We're going to slip up sometimes.
Yeah, for sure.
So, okay, we've got IF, which is all about flexibility
Hmm.
and working with your body's natural rhythms. And then we've got traditional dieting, which is all about calorie control, creating that deficit to lose weight.
Right.
But like, how do we know which one is right for us as individuals?
Well, it's not a one-size-fits-all situation, unfortunately. It really comes down to understanding, like, your individual needs and preferences and lifestyle. So, like, let's say, think about, are you someone who really just hates feeling restricted by, like, food rules? Do
Mm-hmm.
you value freedom and spontaneity when it comes to, like, what you're eating?
Yeah, if that sounds like you, then maybe IF might be a better fit. You're not meticulously tracking calories. You're not cutting out entire food groups. You're just focusing on when you eat.
Exactly. And if you're the kind of person who's like, ugh, breakfast, I don't even want to think about it until like way later in the day.
Like you'd rather just skip it altogether?
Yeah, you might actually like really thrive on those longer fasting windows that ILIF offers. You know, sleep in a little.
Yeah, no pressure to eat right when you wake up
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
then still reap all those potential benefits of fasting.
Right, right. But on the other hand, let's say you're someone who really loves structure and accountability.
Mhm.
You really like having those clear guidelines and specific meal plans to follow.
Yeah, if you're like a checklist kind of person,
Exactly. You like to know what you're supposed to eat each
you
day.
like to see that you did it.
Yeah. Then a traditional diet with like,
Right.
it's structured meal plans and all that might be a better match for your personality.
Right, because you find comfort in that predictability.
Yeah.
So beyond personal preference, what about health goals? So like, let's say someone is not just looking to shed a few pounds, but they're also trying to improve their blood sugar control or reduce inflammation in their body.
Yeah, well, based on what we've seen in the research, FURF seems to be like a pretty good option in those cases. Those extended fasting periods, they can lead to some pretty significant improvements in insulin sensitivity, which is like super key for regulating blood sugar levels.
Right, and we talked about that earlier, how that can really help with those blood sugar spikes.
Exactly.
And then also that reduced inflammation that comes with IF.
Yeah,
That's a major plus because chronic inflammation is linked to so many health problems.
pretty much. Yeah.
But again, as always, we say, talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian,
Oh, for sure.
especially if you have any underlying health conditions, before making any major dietary changes.
Absolutely. Always, always good to get that professional advice.
They can help you figure out what's safe and appropriate for you.
Right. So, on the other hand, let's say you have really specific dietary requirements, maybe due to medical reasons or just personal preference, like you need to follow a low-carb or low-fat plan.
Yeah. Then traditional dieting might offer you a wider range of options that are tailored to those specific needs.
Right.
There are just countless low-carb and low-fat meal plans and recipes available. And you might find that the structure of traditional dieting just helps you stay on track. It's easier to adhere to those guidelines.
Right. But no matter what you choose, whether you go with IF or traditional dieting.
There are some universal tips for success
Absolutely.
that apply to both approaches.
Yes.
Okay, so let's give our listeners some tangible steps that they can implement like right away.
Love that.
Okay, so first and foremost, hydration. Right.
Always, hydration is key
We hear it all the time, but why is it so important?
because it helps with everything. It can actually help curb hunger pangs.
Yeah.
It supports your metabolism. It just helps your body function properly.
Yeah. It's amazing how something as simple as water can make such a big difference.
Really is. And then let's talk about what you're actually eating.
So food choices.
Focus on nutrient-dense whole foods. Things like fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, healthy fats. These foods will help keep you feeling fuller for longer, and they're going to provide your body with the essential vitamins and minerals it needs.
Okay, so it's not just about counting calories. It's also about making sure you're getting those nutrients.
Right. Quality matters.
And what about movement? How does exercise play a role in all of this?
Well, exercise is just crucial for overall health and well-being, but it can also be really helpful for weight loss. It helps boost your metabolism, it helps build muscle mass, and it can also just improve your mood.
Yeah, there's nothing like that post-workout endorphin rush.
No, it's the best.
So are there any types of exercise that you recommend?
It really depends on what you enjoy. Some people love running, some people love swimming, some people love dancing.
Yoga,
Yeah, yoga's great.
anything that gets you moving.
Exactly. Find something that you enjoy and that you can stick with.
But it's also important to be realistic about your goals.
Right, and don't expect to see results overnight.
Yeah, it's a journey.
It is. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
And it's about making those sustainable lifestyle changes
Exactly.
that you can stick with for the long haul.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've talked about hydration, food choices, exercise. Is there anything else that our listeners should keep in mind as they embark on this weight loss journey?
I think the most important thing, and it can be so easy to forget this sometimes, is to be patient with yourself.
Patience.
Sustainable weight loss, it takes time. It takes consistent effort. And there will be ups and downs along the way. But as long as you keep showing up for yourself and you're making those healthy choices most of the time, you're going to get there.
So beat yourself up if you have a slip up.
Exactly. We're all human.
It happens.
It happens. Just get back on track and keep going.
And celebrate those small victories along the way.
Yes, it's not about being perfect. It's about progress.
It really is.
Yeah.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into IF versus traditional dieting, have you started thinking about which one might be a better fit for you? We've talked about the science behind each approach, we've talked about the pros and cons, and we've even given you some tips on how to make them work for your lifestyle.
Yeah. And remember, you don't have to choose one and stick with it forever. You can always experiment and see what works best for your body and your lifestyle at this point in time.
Right. It's all about finding what feels sustainable for you. So let's do a quick recap just to bring it all together. Intermittent fasting, or IF, is all about the timing of your meals.
Right. When you eat, not what you eat.
Exactly. And it can be a really effective way to improve your insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, and potentially even simplify your eating routine.
Yeah, and some people just find that they naturally gravitate towards that way of eating.
And then on the other hand, we have traditional dieting, which is more focused on calorie control and creating that deficit.
Yeah.
And while it can be effective for weight loss, it can also feel a bit more restrictive, especially if you're someone who enjoys spontaneity and freedom with their food choices.
But like we said, it really depends on your personality and what you feel like you can stick with long term.
Right, because if you can't stick with it, it's not going to work.
Exactly.
So the key takeaway here is that there is no one right answer. It's about listening to your body, understanding your goals, and finding an approach that you can sustain over time.
And you can even take inspiration from both approaches. Like you could incorporate some principles of IF, such as extending your overnight fast, while still following a more traditional meal plan during your eating window.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's all about finding what works for you. Okay, so before we sign off, I want to leave you with one final thought. We've talked a lot about the physical aspects of weight loss, but what about the mental and emotional side of things?
Yeah, that's a really important aspect that often gets overlooked.
So how do you think self-compassion plays a role in this journey?
I think self-compassion is huge, especially when it comes to weight loss. It's so easy to get down on yourself when you don't see results fast enough or when you have a slip up.
Right. We've all been there.
But it's important to remember that you're human and you're doing the best you can.
Yeah. Progress, not perfection, right?
Exactly. So be kind to yourself and celebrate those small victories along the way.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into intermittent fasting versus traditional dieting.
It was a pleasure being here.
And remember, you are capable of achieving your health goals. Just be patient with yourself, stay curious, and enjoy the journey. We'll see you next time.